Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Weekend Vibes. I am Ijoma Gloria Nebo, and I have to say, I absolutely love today's topic of discussion. But before we get into it, let's do a quick recap. In our previous discussions, we've explored the pressures men face, why they suppress their emotions instead of expressing it, and the need to redefine strength in our society beyond societal expectations. But there's an aspect we all cannot ignore, and that is men's mental health. The reality is, many men are struggling with depression and emotional distress. With high rates of suicide in men compared to women, it's actually alarming just thinking about it. We want to break the silence today. We want to find ways where we can create an environment where everyone feels safe enough to talk about their health struggles without the fear of judgment. Joining me today, I have a very, very special guest, Dr. Israel Aina, who is a chief consultant psychiatrist in the University of Benin Teaching Hospital, UBTH, Benin City, Edo State. Welcome, Dr. Israel.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well.
Okay, so before we get into all the questions and everything, this is a very important conversation. Like I said, I'm very, very excited about it. Like, I cannot wait for this. So, would you say conversations have been encouraged regarding men's mental health, or do we still have a long way to go?
Okay, I cannot remember in recent time watching a clip or seeing something directly on the social media where the mental health of men is being clearly spoken to. I can't remember. So to that effect, I think not much is being said about the mental health of men.
There's a lot that needs to be
Yes,
done.
I think we need to do more on it. It will go a long way to help the men. And of course, whatever helps the man will help the people that depends on him, his protege, family, and everybody around him.
So, onto the business of the day. What is mental health and what is meant by men's mental health?
Okay, so when we say mental health, we're referring to a state of psychological, emotional, and behavioral well-being. In addition to the fact that this person also has a good level of functioning in terms of his family life, personal life, occupation, social life. So when his psychological health is stable, emotionally is stable, behavioral is stable, and is able to function well, then we say he has mental health. His health mentally is stable. Okay, and then the second part of it has to do with the men's mental health.
Yes.
So when we introduce the word men, we are now beginning to say, okay, how do we define or relate mental health issues to the male gender?
Yes.
Okay, so it will refer to situations where, of course, anyone who is a male is able to experience this level of stability in their health, in terms of their psychological health, in terms of their emotional health, and in terms also of their behavior, so that they can be productive and do what is expected of them as men. Now, the role that a man plays may vary based upon his own level in life, his own age, and the kind of responsibilities that he has. So his ability to stay well in those aspects of his psychological, emotional, and behavioral aspects, and then fulfill the role expected of him, would all constitute the mental health for that man. Let's take, for example, a man who is married. Yes. There are some expectations from him in fulfilling his role towards his family, towards his wife, towards his children, and of course towards other relatives that surround this marriage. So his ability to function well means that he fulfills his role and what is expected of him towards these persons. So all that is captured in his mental health. Of course, he needs to be able to be productive financially or in terms of his occupation also, or business, for him to also meet up with some of these responsibilities. So it encompasses everything about the man in regarding to his gender, and of course in relationship with the responsibilities expected of him.
Thank you so much. I mean, I didn't even think, the word mental health had such an in-depth meaning. Okay, so we can see that mental health, when we say the word mental health, it encompasses a lot, the way you are, the way you function, and even how you relate to the society at large. So, moving on, how does a person go from being fine, being okay, functioning well, to experiencing anxiety, depression, and the way it's going itself, people have suicidal thoughts.
Okay, so um, many of the times the transition from health
Yeah.
to ill health could either be sudden or it could be gradual. But I would dare say that for most people, the transition, particularly for their mental health, transiting from mental health to
Mm,
mental illness or mental disorder,
mm,
many of the times is a gradual process.
it's a gradual
It's a process
process.
that occurs over time. Yes, there are a few isolated cases of people who suddenly have been doing well mentally and they suddenly become
Just
mentally
shift.
unwell,
Mm,
particularly if there's a catastrophe that occur or they go through a very acutely traumatic event. Yes, they can transit from being mentally stable to becoming mentally unwell. But for
mm,
most people, the transition is gradual because the challenges of life that usually makes people to become mentally ill
yeah.
continues to come up and build up gradually over time. And then when people begin to go through the stress, because stress comes in various ways, it is the stress of life that makes people to actually break down mentally. And the way we are built up in such a way that we have an ability to cope with stress. So
Yes.
when stress begins to come, the man begins to cope.
To
He
cope.
tries to cope.
Mm,
But if the stress does not end and it continues, it may get to a point that his coping ability become overstretched. And when his coping ability becomes overstretched, then it tilts into the end of becoming unwell mentally. So the transition for many people is gradual and it is based upon one, the ability of this man to have some emotional or psychological reserve to cope with the stress, and then, of course, the extent of the stress itself. And then that brings about a breakdown. So, when that is happening, there are a lot of small and little subtle symptoms that you
mm,
begin to see that will begin to show that the man is no longer coping well.
yeah, I was.
For example, if somebody is beginning to have problems sleeping, a man is
Oh,
who used to sleep well before is
now.
beginning to have problems sleeping, then it's possible that something is beginning to overwhelm him,
Mm,
right? Somebody who used to come to work regularly and do his work and is very known to do his work well,
yeah.
gradually now begins to decline in his
Performance.
productivity or performance at work, then you can begin to see that there's a gradual shift in his mental health from that stability to the person who is now unstable. So oftentimes a gradual process. It will be obvious in the fact that the person is no longer who he used to be. There's a gradual shift, and
Yes.
then you'll be able to identify that there's a problem that may need intervention.
Well, I was going to ask a question. Somewhat you answered the question though. But since you said there will be symptoms now, are we now as individuals expected to now look out for these symptoms, or can people around us see these symptoms and say, "Oh, come, I don't know if you are going through something, talk to me about it," or
Okay, so first of all, you will know that for everyone as an adult, talking about an adult as a man, and even for everyone who's an adult,
yes.
our health is primarily our individual responsibility.
Ah.
Yes, my health is primarily my responsibility.
Mm,
It is when I'm not doing what I need to do to take care of my health, then the people that love me
mm,
might then take note of a problem that is going on with me and draw my attention to it,
so it's
that I need to get some help. If they draw my attention to it and I'm not making an effort, they may decide to force me to take the treatment because they don't want to
lose
lose
you.
me. So,
Mm,
usually, it is the responsibility of an individual to identify that there's a problem and seek help. But if it does not, then people around should help, should rise up to the occasion. That's why we have family. That's why we have friends. That's why we have colleagues at work or in
mm,
school. If they are genuinely friends, when you see your friend or your brother not doing well, things are going wrong, it is expected that we try and draw his attention or try to find a way to get his attention to be able to get help so that he can be taken care of on time before the matter goes beyond what can be repaired. So it is both the duty of the individual and the duty of everybody around to help take care of that situation.
thank you so much. So, in your experience, how do men typically cope with mental health issues? Or
Okay. So if we say how do men cope with mental health issues?
no, without having to talk about it, like you
Yeah.
said, family and loved ones
Yes.
noticing these symptoms since they cannot notice it, or they seem not to notice it.
Okay.
How do they now cope?
So when we say mental health issues, we are referring now to mental ill health.
Yes.
When somebody's mental health is no longer
Yeah, it's
stable,
no longer stable.
and is now becoming an ill health. So it depends on the severity of the mental ill health or the illness. So generally we talk about mental illnesses, some are mild and some are severe. So the mild ones will just be the normal everyday worries and anxiety that people tend to have, which sometimes some men may help themselves by either talking to a friend, sharing their problem, somebody encourages them, counsels with them. In our own context, sometimes people, we pray about our problems and we have that source of being encouraged and we
True.
move on for the mild problems. And that may just resolve it. So the man may talk to someone and the person may counsel him and advise him. Maybe there's a challenge, he's facing a crisis, somebody gives him a solution or gives him a helping hand, and then it's fine. But when it gets to some point wherein the mental illness is becoming severe and he or she, I mean, the man can no longer handle it by himself, then there will be need for professional help or seeing the therapist to now begin to find out what exactly is the problem, arriving at a possible diagnosis, and then that will help us to now plan whatever the treatment is. So to get help or to find solution to it, it depends on severity of the problem. And once the man is able to identify he has a problem, he should seek help. So many of the times, people don't seek help on time, and they find because there's some stigma attached to the illness.
True.
So men may want to cope by themselves and not speak out. That's one of the major issues we have. And if a man is trying to cope by himself, he will only try to cope based upon his own knowledge as to how to cope. So a man feels unhappy. He thinks that the way to cope is to go and meet some friends, drink beer, do all those activities to elevate his mood and all that. But we do know that those things do not solve the problem, because when you drink and all that, after a while, you go back to your problems. So, but these are ways by which people cope with their problems. Some people take substances, and it actually goes out of control sometimes. Some people that drink or take substances to overwhelm or to cover up their problem may now lose the control over the use of those alcohol or other things, and that becomes an additional problem, additional health problem. Now getting addicted to substance, in addition to the emotional or the psychological or the mental illness they are going through. So that's the way by which some people cope, but may not be a good way to cope. There are better ways to cope. That is, better way to cope is to speak out. Now, the reason why people don't speak out is the issue of stigma, right? That, if I speak out, they will not say I'm mentally unwell.
Sure.
So that stigma, we can only work on it as we educate ourselves, as we talk to ourselves that nobody's perfect in every realm. Everybody people have one challenge or the other. There is no challenge that is special or peculiar. It is individual. So if a person identifies his own challenge, should speak out and seek help. Help will come. Once you get help and you are fine, that's it. If you don't get help, that's when even of the stigma becomes more. But when you seek help and you are treated help and you are aware, the stigma will not be an issue, and then you'll be fine. So seeking help is the most important thing, and try to avoid or disabuse our mind from stigma, and trying to know that there's always help available.
Okay, so he says, what is the most challenging part about opening up with this, with people having health struggles?
Okay, the issue about opening up will be determined or impacted upon by the background of the man. For example, if you're from a background where you are a bit conservative, you are someone who keeps to yourself, do not have too many friends, who feels that you can solve your problems
by yourself
and all that, you may find it difficult to actually express your issues or concern to people. But if you're from a background where you're a bit more liberal, you have a lot of friends, then it might be easier to call up any of your friends and say, this is what I'm going through, and share. So that is what is a major factor that will determine that opening up. Another factor that will determine is the extent of trust that you have in the people you think you want to talk to. If a man thinks I can trust this person to talk to him about my personal issues that are bothering me, then the person will be willing to share. So the challenges that we notice will be based upon the individuals and their own level of trusting people. And of course, people being able to open up about their mental health challenge would also be affected by how severe the mental illness has gotten to. There are some mental illness that have gotten to a critical stage that At that point, the person even thinks that he's well. He thinks he's well, but doesn't think that he's unwell.
It's okay.
So why do I have to open up?
Open.
Some severe mental disorders present that way. So it all depends on the severity of the illness, the level of background of the person, his ideas about trust and stigma of mental illness. All that will impact on his ability to open up and seek help.
Okay, thank you so much. So we should try and get somebody that is close, or a friend or a relative. If you don't have friends that you can't trust, there's always a loved one, regardless of how dysfunctional a family might be. How can you say financial stability and pressure from work play out in all of this?
Okay, definitely it does. Financial stability and pressure from work,
Yes.
business, does play a lot of role in the mental stability of anyone, including men. We actually know that from basic principles, the scripture talks about the fact that money answereth all things.
True.
Money is important to address a lot of our day-to-day needs.
It's not like I want.
And in recent time, people talk about that even when you have something that is stressing you, you can monetize it. Something is stressing you, you can pay somebody to take away the stress or to handle the situation, and then you are free. So money does play a lot of role. And if money plays a lot of role, then that means that our jobs, our occupation affects, everything, because that's the source of our income and our ability to sustain ourselves. So it does play a lot of role. But having said that, there's also the basic principle of economics that says human wants are insatiable. Or is it human needs are insatiable? Whichever way. The fact there remains that no matter how much you earn, no matter how good your job is and how much you earn, you may still not get a mental stability if you do not have what I will refer to now as contentment. Yes, so you will find a man who earns so much and is struggling with his finance. Another man earns something meager and he appears to be happier. This is about contentment and about being modest and being able to live within your means. So a man should learn to live within his means and also try not to compare himself with another. And then if you have people that depend on you, I think there's a need to have that conversation. For example, if you're a married man, you have a wife and children, we should have that conversation where your family should understand your status financially, and we should all agree to live within our means and not place a pressure on the man to produce or bring more money than what he can actually bring. Because if a wife is placing more pressure on the man to bring more money than he can bring, that to place the man under a lot of distress. And whether you like it or not, that will impact his mental health. So our job, our business, financial status does affect our mental health. But it is a duty, like I said, beginning with the man to take charge over these things and make sure that he's able to control them and not allow it to overwhelm him. And then, of course, we do love our men. If we have family, we should encourage them. We should try and make sure that we do not unduly distress them. We should encourage them to make the best of their ability, but at the same time, we should not overstretch them in their being productive within the means of their capability.
True. So, statistically, it says the depression rate in men is higher than women. Why is it so?
Okay, depression rate in men higher than women, I'm not quite sure that is the case.
Most of the suicidal cases that we hear,
yes,
it's actually men that
that is true. The suicide cases are more likely in men, reported in men, than in females. The reason being that when both gender, male and female, when any of them consider harming themselves or ending their life, men tend to use more gruesome methods. Men tend to have a lot of courage to do something more gruesome. Like a man may take a gun to shoot himself. He may decide to jump in front of a trailer or something. But women tend to take overdose or take a particular drug to overdose themselves and then
just go from there.
So in the two instances, when the woman takes an overdose, in the interim of time while that medication or that substance is working, somebody discovers her, and oftentimes they are able to revive, salvage or stabilize her, even though she may sustain some injury. Compared to the man who has shot himself, it is once and final and it is done. Women don't have that in our own balance. They don't have the liver to often do those gruesome methods.
Methods.
So at the end of the day, you find that it is more like that when people try to kill themselves, you find that women will have more of what we call deliberate self-harm, which is failed attempt at suicide.
Failed offense.
But men, we tend to have more of the completed suicide. That means a real suicide. But it doesn't mean that men do try more to harm themselves. In fact, it's more likely to be more in female, but they are usually to be found and revived and salvaged compared to the guys.
Although, you know that as it is now, men are the ones that easily feel, oh, I'm a failure, you know. So the women, in that aspect, you say, okay, maybe a late marriage or childbearing, that's when they really feel that they are a failure. But for the men, for the similar fact that, oh, I do not have a house, I do not have a stable job, I cannot provide, they just naturally feel like a failure. I guess that's a contributory factor, you know.
Yeah, that could contribute also. But again, it also depends on the background and the expectation that this man has about himself and what his family expect of him. If he's from a setting where those are not the top priorities, as far as he thinks he can take care of his family, he thinks he's fine.
Okay.
But for different men and women, the strokes are different for each person. What really matters to some people may not be what matters to some other persons. For the women, they also have their own issues of what they consider as priority. You know, and all that. So it depends on the individual generally.
So what are some signs and symptoms close ones should look out for?
For men to know if their mental health is deteriorating?
Yes.
Okay, so we made reference to that earlier. Simple things that we can identify. A man does not
lose sleep.
He's not sleeping well again. He's beginning to lose his sleep, or the sleep is not satisfactory. That may suggest that something is going on that needs to be attended to. A man finds himself not enjoying what he used to enjoy before, like not even enjoying his work, not enjoying the thing that gives him pleasure before, as he used to. That may be a sign of the fact that his mental health is going down. A man is not able to do as much as he used to do, either being productive in whatever spheres. That may suggest that there's a problem already going on. A man getting angry easily, it's like this man is changing from who we used to know him to be. Getting angry easily, short-tempered, is a bit detached, not being friendly like he used to do, not interacting as usual. All this could suggest that there's a problem. If a person, as a man, begins to now experiment with commonly alcohol, that's the common thing that people take when they begin to have distress. Yeah, common things like alcohol and beginning to now smoke, who never used to do that before. These are subtle warning signs that will suggest to us that there's a problem. So these are some of the things that we can actually look at. And then if it's a married man, it's beginning to now throw the aggression to the wife or to the children, whatever it is, making himself no longer be as friendly and as loving as he used to be. These are warning signs that could suggest that something is going on and he may need help.
I like how you brought this warning signs to basic things that really do happen. It boils down to, oh, these are common things that we see every day. Okay. So to our final question, you know, you mentioned earlier that, oh, we still have a long way to go in terms of having conversations. How or what ways can conversations about men's mental health be encouraged?
Okay, so it can be encouraged in different ways. For example, what we're doing now, when anybody listens to this, it's an encouragement to say, okay, maybe my spouse or maybe my brother or maybe my uncle or friend, I may need to really talk to him or her because I think I'm noticing something. So we encourage people to speak up. We encourage people to try and reach out to their loved ones when they notice anything that is not satisfactory. By so doing, we can encourage a conversation. And then, of course, if we have some of this information out there in the public space, social media and all that, it would improve the level of awareness. And then people can know that there is help. And then we should also try, as much as possible, to let people know that mental health problems are just another type of health problem. Like you have hypertension, you have diabetes and all that. This is another type. And it's not a big deal. So people should not unduly stigmatize people that have mental health issues. That would encourage such persons to want to seek help and speak out. If I know that nobody will stigmatize me, I will not lose my job, I will not lose my credibility in the society because I express my concern over my mental health, then people will be free to express it more freely. So it begins with all of us. And then, of course, everybody who hears about these things We should not unduly look down on people who have mental challenges. We should not unduly despise them. We should not unduly derogate them. If we do that, we are also improving the stigma. So we should help them. In fact, we should see them as people that need more help and more immediate help. And of course, the more we're able to help them, the quicker we're able to get help to them, the better the chances of their recovery. So everybody has got a role to play in the matter to encourage people to speak up and to be able to get help as much as possible. The social media has been very helpful because now virtually everybody has got a phone, and there's virtually everybody who doesn't have a phone now. So you don't even need to have an Android phone. There are a lot of messages that come even from your basic network providers
Even radio
that tell you
stations.
exactly. So all those messages can be put in simple ways that will encourage people to speak up if they have a need for help. And of course, like we talk about it, the print media no not too common again these days now. Newspapers, most people don't read, but we can also try to put in a few things. And then of course the electronic media, like I'm talking about, the radio, the television, and all that, can take advantage of that also to put up a lot of information out there. I think the social media is a major tool now that we can leverage on to put out a lot of encouraging information that will help a lot of people. Thank you.
I feel good right now. It feels like what the knowledge I had coming here has just expanded a whole lot. So
Yeah,
thank you so much.
it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So thank you so much for sticking with us for this conversation or on this episode. It has been really helpful and enlightening knowing all of this and seeing ways we can help the people around us, ourselves as individuals. That's me in front of you. If you are listening as a man, you as an individual, how you can help yourself and how you can even help your friends out there. So please, please, and please, mental illness is not something that happens suddenly. It's a gradual process. So while we know these signs and symptoms, if you see them coming in, just when you just sight them, just stop it, however way you can, stop it and seek help. There's no stigma in seeking help. A man's well-being is the society's well-being at large. So I want to once again say thank you to Dr. Israel Aina for joining us today. We do hope to have you in our show soon.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So please do not forget to share, like, subscribe to all our social media platforms, and see you same time, same station next week. Bye.